Hello everyone, welcome back to Blender Bits. Today we're going to be going over cloth simulation. Today we're going to learn about three fundamentals. The first is the cloth simulation, as you can see that is acting here. The next thing we're going to learn is how to use a pin group, which stops this part of the flag from falling down, which can kind of act as your pole. And the last thing we're going to learn is how to use the force field setting of wind to make your flag flap in the wind like you see here. So let's get right into it. So as you can see here, I've started with a blank scene with my origin at the center. Something that's going to help today's tutorial a little bit is I've added the screencast keys add-on. This will make it so that whenever I type a key, for instance A, it'll put it down in the bottom left corner there, as you can see. That way, if I forget to say what key I'm pressing and you are kind of confused on a part, you can just go back and go down to that little corner there and figure out what I was trying to say. So the first thing we're going to need to do to have the cloth physics is to have an object in our scene. So let's hit Shift A to add in a plane. This will act as our flag. So we don't want our flag flat, we want it more vertical. So let's rotate on the Y 90 degrees to put our flag on this axis right here. Now let's scale on the Y 2 to get more of a flag shape. It's a rectangle that's a 1 by 2. So now hit Tab and hit Control R and then kind of go to the edge here, and you can see that adds in an edge loop, and then left click and then left click again to confirm. And now we've divided our flag into equal sections here. That way the geometry acts well when we're adding physics to it. So now let's right click and hit Subdivide. This is so that we can add more geometry to our flag so that the animation looks more realistic. If you have too small of geometry, the flag won't move like you would expect the cloth to move. So let's change the number of cuts to maybe around 12 will work for now. We can always add in more, but it is somewhat difficult to take cuts out. So now let's add in a modifier, and let's hit Add Modifier and then Subdivision Surface under the Generate column. What this is going to do is when we add physics to our flag, it'll make it a lot more smooth, as it adds geometry to the flag without actually animating that geometry as the physics. So it smoothens everything out for you. The last thing we need to do before we add any physics is hit Tab to go into edit mode, and we need to select this whole line right here. So a really simple way to do that is to hit B for box select and then drag your box out right here to select all those vertices over there. Now let's hit this green triangle down here, which is Object Data Properties, and click on it, and then hit plus. Oops, accidentally added 2. Hit Assign. I usually click it a couple times to make sure I got it. And what we've done is we added this group of these vertices over here. You can see if we deselect and then select again, it'll add those vertices. So let's just deselect that and go back into object mode by hitting Tab. Now we can start adding the physics to our flag. So go to the physics properties and add in a cloth simulation. I suggest saving your blend file at this point and saving it pretty frequently if you have not yet, as things can crash pretty quickly if you add too much geometry. So you can see I just saved down there. I've already saved this underneath a name. If you need to type in a name, go ahead and do that. So let's hit play animation, and you can see our flag just starts to fall down. We're getting a little bit of a lower frame rate, around 16, 17 frames per second, because trying to do it real time can kind of slow it down. So what we need to do is add in that part of our flag that we don't want moving, whether it's connected to a pole or whatever else. It needs to not move to be able to flap in the wind. So I already had it selected, but I closed it to show you. Here's the Shape tab, and that's where we're going to find our pin group, which is what pins part of the flag to not move. So go ahead and left click on it to open it up and go to the pin group and select that group that we made earlier inside this tab right here, the Object Data Properties. So hit play, and you can now see that our flag is falling down, but we have a couple problems. First of all, you can see all these little squares on it, which don't look very good. Also, the flag is passing through itself, which isn't very realistic. So hit right click and shade smooth, and now you can see we've got the first problem down with the squares. It's still there a little bit, but it won't be as noticeable when the flag is flapping in the wind. To change the fact that the flag is passing through itself, close your shape tabs and go down to the collision tab. Right here you can see self collisions. Go ahead and check that. Self collisions are great, as it'll make the flag not be able to pass through itself, but it will slow down the speed of your simulation. There's a lot of settings you can change in that, but the very basic ones will work well enough for us. As you can see, it's a lot more laggy, but that's okay. It can be fixed later with baking the simulation, which basically makes all of the physics stored on your computer so you can replay them quickly. So there's our flag simulation. So the last thing we're going to need to do is add in the wind for the flag, as the flag is currently not flapping at all. So you're going to want to go down to your force fields and wind. Now kind of drag that to the side, although it doesn't really matter. It is kind of easier to keep track. And now, okay, we're going to hit R and then X to rotate. And now the wind is facing the flag. It doesn't have to be exact. An upwards angle works a little bit better. So you can see it's not 100% flat, but it's also not going down either. And then a strength I've found of around 2,000 works well for your flag. So just go ahead and save your simulation real quick, and then hit play. So as you can see, the physics kind of glitched out there for a second. It jumped really quickly. So I'm not sure exactly what the problem is with that, but a solution is just to hit G and kind of move it around on the Z-axis a little bit, and then your simulation should work. So as you can see, the flag is falling a little bit too much for our wind to be able to keep up with. So we're going to want to change the strength of our wind. I'm going to try something maybe around 12,000 would maybe work. Let's see. As you can see, it did that glitchy thing again, so kind of move it around a little bit, kind of resets the simulation. And now the flag should be working a little bit better, but still not enough. This is definitely something you have to play with the weight of your flag and how much wind you have, but now you can see it's starting to come back up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with the settings, and I'm going to bake it real quick, which basically makes all the animations run smoother, and I'll come back to you when that is finished. Alright, now you can see our simulation has finished, and you can notice that we have our cache open here, and our bake has finished, and if we want to change anything, just hit delete bake, and then start again. And this dark blue line down here shows that our bake has finished all the way across our simulation. So let's go ahead and save it and hit play. Now you can see everything's running at a smooth 24 frames a second, and our flag is now flapping in the wind. Although this isn't a perfect flag flapping in the wind, you can change all the values until you find what's right for you, whether you have a strong wind or a very not strong wind, as we call it, a weak wind, I guess. And as you notice at the start of the simulation, the flag kind of goes down and then comes back up. So what I would suggest doing is, if you're going to have this in the scene, make sure to have the simulation start beforehand, and then around frame 80 to 100 you can see it starts to behave more like a normal flag. That's all for today. I hope you've learned something new, and if you have, that's great. Have a wonderful day.